Let's talk about water, the drought and your lawn. Oh boy, what a great suggestion. I tell you what, I'm just totally, what date is this? I'm totally amazed that our elected officials have finally figured out we're in a drought. You know what? It was, how long ago? How long ago was it? It was not 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when we were talking to the sanitation district, we were talking to the city council, we were talking to those people, and I remember producing an alternate plan that they told me wouldn't work because the numbers would change if we were in a drought. But we're in a drought. We've been in a drought the whole time. So all of a sudden, there's this realization there's a problem. And I'm not belittling the fact that the problem is small. There is a problem. But why has it taken this long for our elected officials to figure it out? It's not like we don't live in California, where this is a regular occurrence. Okay? So the governor chimed in on this on January the 17th, and he said, I want to focus Californians on the possibility of water shortages. And he said that maybe in order to fix this, we can suspend some state and federal regulations. Well, that would be a great idea, especially if you live in the Central Valley. So they went on, some of our other elected officials, Fran Pavley said, we need to be resourceful and create new water supplies with cost-effective, sustainable strategies. Now, that's really good. I'm sure she pulled out her little card, and it said, name problem, talk about effective, sustainable strategies. Okay, because that doesn't make anything happen. But the Brown's executive orders, she said, directs state officials to defer extra help to farmers. Are you kidding me? Have you seen the Central Valley? Right early, 10 years ago, they started shutting water down in the Central Valley. They decimated the farmers in the Central Valley, and now that we got a water shortage, they're going to give them more water? This is really amazing to me. Well, Brown said he's urging residents to cut water usage by 20%. That's what he came out with, and I saw other things that said didn't work. We've only cut our water usage by 5%, and maybe that's statewide. I don't know. But we ought to be ready for a long, continued, persistent effort to restrain our water use. I think we should be on a long, continued, persistent effort to find new elected officials that could have figured this out a long time ago. All right? We need to become more efficient and more elegant in how we use our natural resources. Great. This was in that same article. Came out of the Sacramento. These are the number of droughts that have occurred in California since the turn of the last century. Hasn't anybody figured out that we have this problem ongoing every now and then? It's just amazing to me. I'm just totally amazed. You know, I'm sure that. So how are we going to fix it? How are we going to get through this? Well, naturally, we're going to get through it by setting up restrictions on how you, as a resident, can use water. So they came up with an idea that we should prohibit watering to runoff on sidewalks or streets, hosing down sidewalks, yeah, that's it, driveways or other hardscape. They've been saying this for years. Or washing vehicles without a shutoff hose. Really great. How about slowing down the number of new connections? Right? But that wasn't part of it. And so then they proposed that possibly they could have enforcement by anybody with a law enforcement authority should be able to go write you a ticket for water use. And these words are not mine. These came out of the article. Or a water cop. Now, I don't know. I've been searching for one, but I haven't found any. And they have the discretion. They want to give the law enforcement guys the discretion to issue a warning or a fine up to $500. This sounds like code enforcement on steroids. Dan Masnada, who is not my favorite person. He's the person that, if you remember, 6 months ago was telling us, drought? Don't worry. State cuts us off of water? Don't worry. We've got enough water bank for 3.5 years. Anybody been in those meetings when he said that? Right? Okay, 3.5 years. Now he says, despite our outreach, we're a bit above last year's levels because of extremely dry and warm conditions. That's the other part that amazes me. They haven't figured out. Not only is there periodic droughts, we have summer here, and it gets hot. Okay? The bottom line, the conservation is happening, but it is more than offset by extremely dry conditions in combination with some growth. That means new connections, right? And this article went on to talk about, but how are we going to keep this all going? How are we going to enforce this? I mean, someone might water their lawn at 2 in the morning and would never know, you know. And Masnada, in his inimitable style, said, "Oh, people will rat each other out. Oh, that's going to be fun." You know, I can just see the neighborhoods picking that up. I didn't put anything else on that chart because that statement says it all for Masnada. So I got back from from Alaska. I wish it was no, Alaska was fun. I got back from Alaska and I was besieged by reading articles in the paper. You know, county gets involved and they say, yeah, that's true. We should limit all this. And then the Signal says, hey, I think these are what the water rules are going to be on July the 31st. And then someone says, oh my God, you realize how much money is involved if we lose all of our lawns? So they come up with a Saving SCV Lawns thing, you know. Do the lawn limbo. Remember that? Then the state says it's hard to track water use. And then the Signal comes out and says, you can get a personal drought report. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a personal drought report is, but you can get one. Now they come out with Cash for Grass program. So if you have a nice lawn and you want to take it out and put something else in, they'll help fund it. But they're not going to help fund it. You're going to help fund it, right? Because it's going to come out of your fees. Remember, every time they come up with an idea that they're going to run a seminar, that they're going to give away free this, they're going to give away free that, they're going to exchange this for that, they don't pay for it. You pay for it. And then, I loved it, exemptions to the drought rules. And some of the exemptions one of the exemptions to the drought rules and watering rules is in case you've just put in new landscaping, you have to water it more.
But they're not even consistent within all 3 water providers.
Of course they're not. So let me get this straight. You want me to conserve, which is okay. You know, I shouldn't be wasteful with what I use. But you want me to conserve and maybe put a burden on me. But you want to continue adding new users. You haven't talked at all about what you're going to do for industrial water users. And you want to let people put in new landscaping and give them an exemption. It just doesn't make me feel good. So then the SCV water schedule was approved, and Signal came out on the 16th, a time to water, a time to not, and it talks about watering 3 times a week in the summer and twice a week in the winter. Now remember, we were going to save how much? 20%. Well, let's do some math. You know me, I just immediately jump and get my calculator and figure out what we're doing. If you water 3 days in the summer instead of watering 7 days and a week with the same water settings, well, that's 43% reduction. Well, I thought we were talking 20. And then if we water 2 days a week with the same settings, it's a 71% reduction. So every time, this should make you feel really good. Every time they add a new user, it wipes out the effect of your savings. Right? I don't know. So my feeling about this is, if the water solution is so dire, why are we allowing new connections? I mean, why are we doing it? If it's such a drastic problem, why don't they have the intestinal fortitude to say no new connections until this drought is over?
No new pump ranch.
Well, that's a new connection. But that's not the only new connection around here. We got a lot of other new connections. What about why don't we put a moratorium on new landscape plantings until the drought is over? Why are we hamstrung those poor farmers in the Central Coast? I mean, we hammered those guys. Anybody drive up to 5? You see what it looks like in the Central Coast? It's horrible. And why? Because they stopped pumping water down. And now I don't know how they're going to where they're going to get the water to relax those agricultural uses. And why isn't the city making some recommendations for their ordinances, for landscaping ordinance changes? You know, one of the things I thought that's interesting, Berta and I live in North Oaks. And in North Oaks, we have parkways, don't we? Pretty big. Yeah, pretty big parkways. And what does the city say you have to do with them? You have to landscape them, right? But in a new track, no parkways, right? So, are they important? Should they be landscaped? Should they be hardscaped? I mean, if I can only tell you mine, if I'd hardscape my parkways, it would reduce my water consumption 25%. Those are the hardest things to keep alive, right? All right. But the biggest problem and the biggest issue is, why haven't we been recycling? Why haven't we been recycling the 20 million gallons a day of wastewater that we purify and throw away in the river? And you know what's happened to us? By the way, 20 million gallons a day represents 30% of the Santa Clarita's water demand. We would save 30% permanently if we were taking that wastewater and reusing it. It's considered non-potable water now in this part of the country. It's considered non-potable water now. But if it's non-potable water, it still can be used to irrigate with. So, the only thing that they did was run a pipe across the street to the golf course. So why haven't we had a plan all along to start recycling and using that water to irrigate with? And the longer we wait, the less water we'll have. Because of the fact that we didn't start when we first had an opportunity, now we have other people like Fish and Game that says, oh, 13 million gallons a day of that is establishing a habitat, and you can't use that water. You can only use 7 million gallons of it today. And if we wait another 10 years, they'll probably figure out we can't use that either. So I brought this up at City Council meeting before the hiatus. I agree with you that we get dumped on at hiatus a lot, but I brought that up, and what answer did I get? I got the answer from Bob Keller: we have a lot of smart people thinking about water. Well, I think they should do more than think about it. And the big question is, why always is the residential customers hit with the biggest burden? So, again, this is a big problem. I know it's a big problem. I'm not belittling the problem. I'm just saying we should have better attention to it, and we should have worked at it better. So I got my water bill for last month. And my water bill for last month says, mandatory water restrictions to increase water conservation will soon be in effect. And I had read all these articles in the paper, and not that I would say that the signal is not always 100% accurate, but I decided, instead of blindly trying to follow what the signal said, I'd call CLWA. So I called CLWA and said, hey, guys, have you figured out what we're supposed to do yet? And they said, yes. I said, are you going to send it out to us all in writing? And they said, yes. And I said, well, then I'll do it. So they will be sending it to all of our customers. But I really don't think that in total, my recommendation is not just to wait there. My recommendation is, like I said, this is a real problem. We're big boys and girls. We know that there's going to be something we need to do. So I would get ready for the official, start thinking about what you're going to do when you get the official announcement and how you're going to implement what they're going to want you to do. And you can do that also by reviewing your property's landscaping and say, well, maybe there's a way to reduce your water consumption that you'd like to do. Maybe this is the opportunity to do a project. Maybe it isn't. And review your landscape irrigation plan and equipment. That's something I've got to do. My irrigation equipment is 30 years old. It was put together when we were on well water and the street only had 70 pounds of water pressure. 70 pounds through 3/4 inch pipe, 4 full heads. I got lots of valves. So now I started looking at it. Well, the pressure's higher. I can start combining some of these and maybe saving some water. So we should do it. We should look for ways to not waste water. And so hopefully we'll be told that we can use gray water in some cases for landscaping. It wouldn't be that hard to capture water from washing machines and then reuse it, or some of the things that would be done more easily, or like, for example, I've been thinking about a new water heater. What about the recirculating systems that give you instant hot water so you don't sit there and watch the water go down the drain until it gets hot when you take a shower? There's all kinds of things that we could be thinking about. And it doesn't seem like our elected guys are really helping other than saying, don't do something. So that's my recommendation to you, and we'll wait. And as soon as we get the thing in the mail, then I guess we're going to be off to the races. Are there any questions? Wow, this is not a questioning evening. Yes. Okay.
Hi, Al. Like you, I call San Florida Water because that's my company, and they're very confused because I grow a lot of my own, fruits and vegetables, and that throws a whole other whammy into their how they work things. Also, through hand water, it does a whole other thing. So really and truly, they don't know what they're talking about. They really don't. I don't see how they could possibly enforce it because there are so many variables. How can they tell whether or not I'm growing my own food? How can they tell whether I'm hand watering just because my grass is green? So the whole thing is goofy. But the other thing is, when you mentioned about the water being banked, I recall being in a lot of those meetings where we were told not to worry because there was water banking in Kern County, and we were never going to run out of water, and don't worry about all the development. And as you astutely pointed out, it's all a bunch of hooey. But one of the things that I remember from the last time that we went through something like this, when they asked us to conserve water, was we did, but then they raised the rates on what we actually paid for the water, so that they wound up not losing any money because they complained that their income had dropped. So the bottom line is, either way, they're going to lie to us, and either way, we're going to take it in the shorts.
Well, you just hit one of my pet peeves. You really did. You just hit one of my pet peeves. I understand. I thought I understood business. Okay. And I ran a service organization, and my whole goal in life was to satisfy my customer. And if my customer needed more service, well, I had to find out a way to do it and help my customer out. Here, now with utilities, it seems like what the company does is say, use less electricity, use less water, use less natural gas. And then when you do it, they say, oh, well, now we're not making the same amount of money we did, so we're going to raise your rates. Well, wait a minute, guys. That to me, why doesn't it ratio? Why, if I use less, shouldn't I pay less? Why should I keep your guys working just because you want them to be working? This is something that the whole country has got to. Southern California Edison needs to be concentrating on how to get more electricity to their customers than worrying about flex alerts. Now, if I heard about flex alerts the first year, I'd say, okay, you got a problem. Here, let's help you solve it. And maybe the second year, they're going to tell me it takes a little while to fix it. But I've been listening to that for 10 years. So they're not going to fix the problem. And then they're going to add new customers. So, the same thing is with water. We're hearing the same type of thing. And to me, it says, you know what? You're a water company. Figure out how to get the right amount of water there. You're an electric company. Figure out how to satisfy your customers with enough electricity. And this is, like I said, it's happening all over the country. And I just don't understand how, when I can use their favorite word, I don't understand how this is sustainable over the long term. Oh my. So think about that drought situation and my little rant about service organizations. Because think about it the next time you cast your ballot in the next several elections. Think about it when you hear what the elected officials have to say about these kind of problems and what they're going to do to fix them. All right? So when CLWA, which is our next local election that deals with water, is going to come around here, let's ask those guys, what are you going to do in the long term to fix this? Yeah, we'll help you out, and we'll help you fix it in the short term. What are you going to do in the long term? How are you going to make this better? And let's elect, and maybe what we need is new faces there. Could be. Any questions? Not a questioning evening. Again, I thought it was a good thing the city is asking us to help them, and we should.